So, you're thinking about getting a Beagle. Well, there's one thing I'd say straight away. They're not really a dog that looks to you first. They look to the world around them. That's not a bad thing, but it does show what life with them actually feels like. Beagles were bred to track scent, usually over long distances and often without needing much direction. So, from the beginning, they weren't designed to check in with people all the time. They were designed to follow something and stay on it. They're usually around 9 to 11 kilos. They live into their early teens. And on the surface, they come across as friendly and easygoing dogs. And they are friendly, but they're also curious, quite independent, and very in tune with their environment. That independence is probably the biggest thing to understand early on. If you compare a Beagle to something like a Labrador, which tends to look back to you for direction, a Beagle is much more likely to just keep moving toward whatever has caught their attention. Day to day, living with a Beagle feels quite active, but not high energy, run all the day kind of a way. They're more like always engaged with something. You go for a walk and what you think will be a 20-minute loop turns into a lot of stopping, sniffing and doubling back because they've picked something up and they're not ready to leave it. And that's where people sometimes get caught out. It can look like the Beagle is ignoring you, but they're not. They're just doing what they were bred to do. They do need exercise, usually an hour a day, but what really makes a difference is letting them use their nose. If they don't get that, you'll usually notice it. They'll start finding their own things to do, and digging is a common one. Or just consistently searching for something new and interesting. Socially, they're generally easy dogs to have around. They tend to be good with people, and they're generally very comfortable around children. They are quite tolerant and social, which is why they're often seen as family dogs. But like most breeds, they do best where interactions are calm and respectful, especially with younger kids. Beagles like to being a part of things, but they're not necessarily checking in with you the whole time. With cats, it depends. If they grow up together, it can work well. But that tracking instinct is always there in the background. You don't need a huge house for a Beagle, but you do need to be prepared to keep them occupied, because if they're bored, it usually shows up pretty quickly and often quite loudly. Beagles aren't quiet dogs. That baying sound they make, that's not something they've picked up along the way. That's built in. It's how they were designed to communicate. So, if you're in a close living environment, that's something that you need to think about. In terms of being left alone, they're not always comfortable with it for long periods. They tend to do better where there's some company, either people or another dog. A lot of Beagles actually do quite well in daycare because of that. They enjoy the interaction. From a care point of view, they're relatively straightforward. Short coat means not a lot of grooming is required. But food is something you definitely need to stay on top of. They're very food motivated, which is great for training, but it also means they happily overeat if given the chance. So portion control really matters. Health-wise, there are a few things to be aware of. Their ears can be prone to infection because of how they sit, so regular cleaning helps. And like many breeds, they can be prone to weight gain, which can affect their overall mobility over time. Hip and joint issues can also appear in some dogs. So maintaining a healthy weight and choosing a responsible breeder makes a difference. Nothing overly complex, but it's just about staying aware and being consistent with their health. As puppies, they're curious about everything. They'll go through that nipping phase and they'll explore with their mouth, their nose, everything. Training a Beagle is less about control and more about keeping them interested. They are smart dogs, but they're not always focused on you. So, if something else is more interesting, they will go with that. That's just how they're wired. So training works best when it feels engaging and not repetitive. So starting early makes a big difference. They tend to suit people who like a dog that feels involved, not just sitting beside you, but actively part of what's going on. They're great in homes when someone's around a bit more often. And they often do really well with other dogs. The Beagle is probably not the best fit if you're looking for a quiet dog, or a dog that will walk off lead reliably without a lot of training, or one that's happy to be left alone for long periods. And they're not typically the easiest choice if what you want is a highly obedient, owner-focused companion. Beagles simply are not wired for that. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that because they're friendly, they're easy. Well, they are friendly, but once a scent comes into play, everything else becomes secondary. Beagles are great dogs. They're social, curious, and they bring a lot of life into a home. But they do have a strong way of moving through the world. And if you understand that and work with it, they can be incredibly rewarding to live with. Because the dog you choose will shape your life. And with a Beagle, that life tends to follow wherever their nose takes them. I hope you found this information helpful. Please leave a comment if you have any questions about this or any other breed. You'll find links in the description for more pet stories and to artwork inspired by life with pets. See you next time on Pet Personalities.